Now, a number of deaths allegedly linked to e-cigarettes in the United States has led to concern over the safety of vaping.
So today the industry is launching a campaign to try to reassure millions of vapers in the UK that it's a safe alternative to smoking. Here's Breakfast's Graham Satchell.
Milwaukee's health department issued an alert telling people to stop using those e-cigarettes immediately.
It's being described in America as an epidemic.
That's now 27 deaths linked to vaping in 22 states.
Every day, a new report of someone dying or being hospitalized.
This is the illicit market for THC vape oil.
This undercover report shows why. Backstreet stalls selling fluid laced with cannabis.
Guaranteed to not kill you. Asterisk.
Most of the reported deaths have been linked to vaping unregulated, homemade cannabis oil, and the panic now gripping America has prompted the UK vaping industry to act. Today they've started a print campaign in national newspapers. It says what's happening in America couldn't happen here because the UK industry is tightly regulated.
We feel that it's really important that the general public and vapers can be reassured that the products they're buying here in the UK are safe to consume and that they're dealing with facts and not fiction.
Vaping in the UK is controlled by an EU directive. All liquids have to be tested and registered. There are restrictions on advertising and selling to under 18s. But as time goes on, there are also scientific studies starting to suggest that vaping can cause some damage. Can you guarantee that if someone is vaping in the UK that they'll be safe?
What I can guarantee that if you're using vaping to get off smoking, that it's far less harmful for you to vape than it is to smoke. But nothing that we do in this world is 100% safe.
We can talk now to Martin Dockrell from Public Health England, who joins us now from our Edinburgh newsroom. Thank you very much for talking to us this morning.
Pleasure.
I suppose people are now asking, when they see all these reports in the US and they see what's been happening, is vaping safe?
Well, you can understand why people are in such a panic from the way the stories come across from the US. But as your clip made really clear, this is not an outbreak associated with the regular kind of nicotine e-cigarettes, but more kind of e-joint, cannabis vaping, which is very different. So we've had about 26, 27 deaths from cannabis vaping in the US in the last couple of months. We have had no deaths at all associated with the regulated e-cigarette products that we have in the UK.
About the more than 1,000 cases of a lung illness which has been linked to vaping by US health authorities?
Really, really serious, but linked to vaping cannabis products. And that is a concern. And it's something that we're keeping under tight scrutiny here in the UK too.
Well, to be fair, investigators haven't linked the illnesses to any particular product or compound. They did say vaping oils containing THC, which is the psychoactive ingredient in marijuana, poses a great risk, but they haven't linked it yet.
Well, what they have done is they see a very clear pattern of who's at risk. And so right from the start, it was very clearly young men, largely men, who were reporting vaping cannabis products. It doesn't seem to be related to the 9 million adult US vapors of nicotine products. So you can see that in some states it's 95% or more of the cases are associated with biologically demonstrated exposure to THC. So it really
I really do want to stress that the Centre for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, has advised people, and it hasn't made specific. It has said it's not linked the illnesses to any particular product or compound, and it has said
that's quite right.
And it has advised, so not just THC, but it has advised people to stop using vaping products or e-cigarettes, and this is the crucial bit, regardless of whether they contain nicotine or marijuana.
That is the advice that the CDC has given, absolutely. But they've also reported that the overwhelming majority of people, and you can just, if you do a little search on the internet for CDC vaping, it'll take you straight to the CDC website, and it'll show you the proportions of people who have been exposed to THC. Now, it's quite right that we don't know that it's the THC that's causing the problem. It might be something else, and it could well be something else in the THC vaping, in the e-joints. So it might be, for example, something called vitamin E acetate, which seems to be added to many of these products. Or it might be some other kind of contaminant that's got in a rogue way. But this is a sudden outbreak in a very specific population. And it's really very different from the kind of thing we're seeing in the UK. So it's really important in the UK to focus on the real risk. And the real risk is not in nicotine-containing e-cigarettes, regulated much more strictly in the UK than in the US. But the real risk in the US and the UK is among people using these THC vaping devices. Now, it might not be the THC that's causing the problem, but there's something in these THC devices that is causing the problem.
In the number that was found in this country, there has been a small.
Sorry, in the number that was found in this country?
In the small number, the 7 or 8 you said, that were linked to THC, not these 1,000 that were in the United States, which the CDC says isn't linked.
I didn't say. I certainly didn't mean to say that any products were identified in this country. But that's right, there are 1,000 cases in the US where people who were overwhelmingly exposed to THC products have had this lung disease. And that's very different from the situation in the UK and from nicotine e-cigarettes, which are regulated by our medicines regulator, the MHRA. So it's much more tightly regulated in the UK than in the US.
Okay, as the tobacco control lead for Public Health England, when you, and I imagine you are told about all studies that are of significance, there has been a small lab study where UK scientists found that vapor could lead to changes in the lungs' immune cells. The fact is, isn't there, that there is a risk. There is some risk when it comes to smoking e-cigarettes. So for them to be promoted as a safe alternative to smoking cigarettes, perhaps isn't the wisest advice, is it? Tell me.
We've always said that e-cigarettes are not completely safe, but far, far safer than smoking. And so, the BBC kindly sent a cab to pick me up, to bring me to the studio this morning. That wasn't completely safe. Obviously, there are risks in road traffic, but so with e-cigarettes, not 100% safe. But remember, 28 cases, I think, of 28 deaths in the US, but in the UK from smoking, 220 deaths every day. That's the scale of risk. 220 deaths from smoking every day. E-cigarettes are far, far less harmful. No deaths recorded in the UK linked to linked to the regulated nicotine-containing e-cigarettes that are approved by the MHRA. So that's really reassuring. Those products are way, way safer. And my advice to the British public is the same to my brothers and sisters and my nephews and nieces and all my friends who smoke. Way, way better to stop smoking completely. 50% of people, at least, who are lifelong smokers will die from smoking-related illness.
Martin,
there's no suggestion that vaping nicotine is anything like that risky.
Martin Dockrell, Tobacco Control Lead for Public Health England, thank you very much for talking to me on the programme.
Pleasure.